ladies and gentlemen, we're going to make our first attempt at a video for flipping a lesson in our classroom. And this might be out of order. We might not actually be doing this first, but I just want to use it as a test case to see if this is something that we can do in class or what we need to fix to make sure that it will work better. I must tell you up front, I'm not really comfortable being on camera, but for you guys, I will do it. Okay, so you'll notice that the picture that's connected with this flip lesson looks like this. It's kind of an introduction to what I want you to think about. I would say this is one of the two hardest things in 7th grade math, is adding and subtracting positive and negative numbers and keeping all the rules straight. And also, what we'll do later after the holidays will be surface area. That's kind of tricky too, because there's a lot of steps to it. So let's tackle this one first. And this is really important for a lot of things that we're going to do after this, such as expressions and equations, because you're going to have to combine like terms. And that requires you to be able to work really well with positive and negative numbers. So I'm not 100% sure how much of this you did last year, so I just want to go back a little bit and talk about what you should have learned or what you need to know. Might be a better way of putting it. And an even better way of putting it might be what you should remember, because you had good teachers last year, so I'm sure that you did learn it. Okay, so first of all, let's talk about a number line. And what I want you to think about with this number line first is 0, where 0 is. For right now, we're going to put 0 right in the middle. And today, we're just going to be talking about whole numbers, not fractions, not decimals, not parts of, but whole numbers. So I'm sure most of you are familiar with the number line as it looks like this. We'll just go to 4. All right, now the number line also goes this way. And this side of the number line, we say, are negative numbers. And I'm going to write out some of the negative numbers, and then I want you to just take a second to think about what you see. I'm going to work on my 4s. It's been a long summer. So what do you see up there? What pattern do you see that maybe you might have forgotten or maybe you didn't really understand before? Okay, I think a lot of you have probably noticed that there's a 1 and a negative 1, and a 2 and a negative 2, and a 3 and a negative 3, and a 4 and a negative 4. And if I kept on going, these numbers would look bigger, but they're actually smaller mathematically. And these numbers keep getting bigger, and they really are bigger. Alright, so we have positive numbers and we have negative numbers. And they are always a certain distance from 0, which is another topic that we will cover in a different video. But think about if you know what that is and what that might be. 2 words. First word starts with an A. Alright, so this video lesson is really about discovering how you're going to add and subtract negative numbers and positive numbers. So I want to look at a couple different ways of thinking about it. All right, in class, you're going to get some chips, and those chips will be red and yellow. Yellow is really hard to see on a whiteboard, so we're going to use black and red. So we're going to say that the black chip is a positive number. That's shorthand for number. You'll see that a lot this year. And the red is going to be a negative number. Okay, so if I gave you a problem like from 1st grade, and it was 3 plus 4, and you wanted to know how much that was, and you wanted to do it with your chips, how would you do that? Think about it for a second. It's a little awkward on video to stand around and let you think about it, but think about it for a second. Hopefully I'm still in the picture. It's an experiment. All right, so in 1st grade, I don't know, kindergarten, you probably would have taken 3 of these, and then you would have taken 4 more of those, and then you would have counted them to see what your answer was. And your answer would have been 7, and you would have been right. All right, let's try another one, just to prove a point. What if the question was -3 minus 4 equals about that? Think about that for a second. All right, so I told you that red is negative. And these numbers still represent quantities, numbers of those things. So let's draw 3 negatives. There'll be chips in class when you're in class. And 4 negatives. So how many negatives do I actually have if you count them all up just like you used to do in first grade? Right, I feel like I'm doing a Sesame Street episode. I'll get better at it. Okay, -7. Right, -7. Hopefully you all got that. All right, so that's pretty easy. So you've got +3 and +4, drew 3. You drew 4 and you counted them up and you got 7. -3, -4, counted them all up and got -7. All right, now what if we mix it up? What do you think that's going to look like? Giving you a moment to think. What if we mix it up? Well, let's do actually maybe a better way to do it is draw some pictures and then discover what the problems are. So maybe this is a good way to do it. So if I do this, and that is everything all together, we'll have some maths in class. What is that actually? What would the answer to that be? Or what does the math problem look like? So we're talking about 2 different questions. What does the math problem look like? And how do we find the answer? I'll give you a moment to think about that. All right, so if I said these are positive, how many of those do I have? I have 1, 2, 3, 4. 4. So I'm going to write the math problem over here. 4. And I have 3 negatives. 1, 2, 3. So that's -3s. All right, so that's a problem from first grade too. What's the answer to that? Everybody should get that right away. It's 1. All right? Now, let's think about that and think about this. What's one way I can get to 1 out of this picture? And then just as a little hint, let's talk about that number line again. If I have a +1 and I have a -1, and I put them together, what do I have? If I take a +1 and a -1 and I put them together, what do I have? I give you 1 and I take 1 back. What do you have? I give you $1 and I take $1 back. How much money do you have? Unless you have money in your pockets, of course. So we're talking about the money I gave you, and I take the money back. What do you have? All right, you have 0. You have no money, right? So let's think about this. I cross that out, and I cross that out, and I cross that out, because those are all zeros. That's a 0, that's a 0, that's a 0. What am I left with? I said those are positive, +1. And that matches the answer that we have. So some of you are ready to think about this kind of problem. Some of you are ready to think about this kind of problem. Some of you are still thinking about the number line. We're going to kind of try to spend more time on the number line this year because it is actually really important and we don't really spend a lot of time on it usually. So this will be attached to this lesson, but what I want you to think about to show me that you really watched this lesson for your homework assignment is I want you to be able to draw me a math problem, or show me with the chips when we get into class, that you understand the representation of positive and negative. And remember, with the chips, the yellow is positive and the red is negative, and I'll remind you of that in class tomorrow. And that, can you get from the picture to the problem, and can you get an answer? And there's one whole other kind of scenario we haven't even talked about yet, which we will build on for class. So thank you for watching this video, thank you for being guinea pigs, and I will see you in class tomorrow.